Hello, my name is Morgan Headley, and today I will be talking about oil spills and their impact on ecosystems. How do oil spills happen? Oil spills can happen through pumping oil through offshore oil pumping rigs. Um, they can also happen through the transportation of oil, meaning through pipes or vehicular transportation in containers. Think of pipes on the ocean floor or, vats of oil on ships that might fall off. Um, This can happen through refueling ships as well. Think of oil spilling out of like a gas tank or off a container, a shipping container. Um, this can happen when ships sink as well. Once they sink to the bottom, any oil that is within like the engine can come out, and that's considered an oil spill as well. Most oil spills are small, but can still affect the environment. Think of a lot of small oil spills that build up over time. That's a lot of damage. Um, Bigger oil spills are considered major disasters and are treated as such. These are some of the biggest oil spills in history. Starting off with the Persian Gulf War oil spill in 1991, an estimated 380 to 510 million gallons of oil spilled. This was intentional, and this happened as a result of Iraq invading Kuwait, trying to get to their oil reserves. The United States and other countries fought off Iraqis, but in the process, they ignited fields and emptied around 380 to 510 million gallons of oil into the northern Persian Gulf. Again, this was intentional. The second biggest oil spill in history was the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010. Um, a lot of people might remember this one. It was in the news a lot and is still talked about to this day. A well cap broke off and there was a huge surge of natural gas, and this gas ignited and it killed 11 people or 11 workers and injured another 17. Once the oil rig capsized, it spilled around 134 million gallons of oil. The third biggest oil spill in history is Mexico's Ixtoc 1 oil spill in 1979. A malfunction caused the buildup of gas and oil in the drill, and it came up to the surface and ignited when it came in contact with the gears. There was a total of around 126 to 140 million gallons of oil and gas spilled into the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico. Some consider this the second biggest oil spill in history because they don't know exactly how much oil was spilled. So it's just speculated. And this is how oil spill affects animals. Um, Oil spills usually affect animals that reside in or around the water. Oil usually floats, meaning it can affect animals outside of the water as well. Seabirds are harmed and killed more than any other organism from oil spills. Um, Oil can sink and get stuck in water columns, which means that fish and shellfish are also affected. We eat fish, so it affects us as well. Oil destroys the insulating abilities of feathered animals like birds and animals with fur, like otters. This is dangerous because these animals end up dying of hypothermia. Sea turtles can also get stuck in oil as well as mistaking it for food. Dolphins and whales also inhale oil, and it affects their reproductive organs, lungs, and immune systems. These are endangered animals, so this is really bad, and it can also have effect on their offspring because of the reproductive issues that come with it. In general, when fish are exposed to oil, they experience reduced growth, fin erosion, affected respiratory and circadian rhythms, and decreased reproduction rates. This affects us greatly because with less fish means less food for people to eat, as well as the economic issues that come with that, with fishermen not being able to get as much fish and things like that. How oil spills affect the surrounding environment. Wetlands, oyster reefs, and beaches are mainly affected as ecosystems. Um, Migratory patterns for animals are affected as well, especially the time in which animals migrate is affected. Um, it means that animals take longer to get to where they need to be when they migrate. Rest stops for organisms can be completely wiped out as well, meaning it's harder for them to navigate and to be able to survive when migrating. Breeding grounds are also affected, meaning a drop in the overall population of these organisms. Again, means less overall organisms, and this damages the ecosystem as well as makes it harder for us to be able to fish them. How oil spills affect us humans. Direct effects on us include respiratory problems and entering through the skin. Um, Oil has volatile compounds that are turned into gases and can be inhaled by us, which can cause respiratory problems. It can cause cancer as well. These contaminants can travel far in the air and are sometimes undetectable by mere smell. People who are in contact with these for a while are mostly affected. Um, direct contact with our skin can cause immediate irritation to the skin, and when absorbed, can cause a multitude of health problems, including cancers and other genetic issues. With animals like fish and shellfish being exposed to oil, it is absorbed in their bodies. When we humans eat these fish, it is going directly into us, and the effects of this are still being studied. There's also huge economic drawbacks for communities that rely on these areas to make money from fishing, tourism, and there's also reduced property values. This overall makes it harder for people to make money for their family. What can we do to help reduce oil spills and the effect of oil spills? There are tips for boaters to help prevent small scale oil spills, which do build up, such as tightening bolts on their craft, especially in their engine. The shake of the engine can cause a lot of bolts to become loose, and this means that there's a greater chance of oil spilling. They can do regular maintenance and use absorbent pads and drip pans on the boat when refueling to prevent oil from getting on the floor of the boat or in the water. You can also volunteer to help clean onshore or at sea, as well as volunteering at veterinary clinics near spills to help clean and nurture animals back to health. And just to recap, um, oil spills are very damaging to the environment. They cause a lot of chain events that really affect everybody, including organisms and the environment. It affects the whole food chain. It gets into these fish and shellfish, and we eat that, and the health effects from that are really damaging to them and to us. And it's still being studied to this day, so we don't know exactly what it causes. But it can be genetic as well, which means it could be passed down to offspring. Oil spills hurt us economically, which is another big issue. Um, the Gulf of Mexico oil spill was really bad for communities in the area, especially for fishermen who are trying to provide for their families. Just overall, it affects everything economically in the area and even further. And we can also help mitigate the damage from these oil spills through teaching ourselves and others about this issue and help each other figure out how to stop this from happening. And, if it does happen, to help, you know, mitigate the damage that comes from it. And these are all my sources. And thank you very much for listening.